Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cabinet on Monday, the 21st of October. I am the chairman of this meeting, the leader of the council, Mark Stevenson. Okay, I think I'm just going to jump straight into the agenda, so I'll ask if there are any apologies, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, there are a number of apologies this morning. So I can report apologies from Councillor Gina Placey, the portfolio holder for partnerships, the leader of the Conservative group, Councillor Paul Honeywood, and his deputy, Councillor Carlo Guglielmi, is present. And I can also report apologies from Councillor Jane Chapman, the leader of the Independent group, and also from her deputy, Councillor Graham Steady. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Okay, hopefully we've all had a look at the minutes. Are we happy to move them as a signed copy? So I'll propose them. Can I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Everybody okay with that? Okay, I'll sign them as we go. Okay, thank you very much. Item number 3 is declarations of interest. Anybody got any declarations? Councillor Barry.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I need to declare an interest in agenda items 8 and 9, where there is reference to Brightlingsea Lidor, of which I am a trustee, and I have applied for dispensation and been granted that by the monitoring officer under section 33(2)(e) of the Localism Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. Item 4, announcements by the leader of the council. I think I've only got one. That's the reason for the move to a Monday morning instead of a Friday morning. And that was because last Friday we had 14 Historic England commissioners come down to see tendering and everything it's worth. And what's so important about these guys, they were the decision makers. And such was the case that they didn't want politicians in the room. So I wasn't allowed to go. So I'm going to hand over to Mr. Davidson, who was allowed to go, and he can tell us a little bit more about it.
Thank you, Leader. I think that it was a huge opportunity for us because the Historic England Commissioners are a very eminent group from coming from very diverse backgrounds, and so their interest is not purely around historic buildings. It was a great opportunity for us at Tendring to talk about the fantastic hidden gems which we have in Tendring, of historical, ranging back 400,000 years right the way through to really quite modern things, but are still historic monuments for us, and have a historic importance. The pier is, relatively recent, going forward, some in more modern buildings, and the importance of those. This building actually is in terms of listing as well. So it gave us a real opportunity to talk around the different opportunities we have to address some of our socio-demographics, utilising our relationship with Historic England, whether that be by creation of employment, by creation of the opportunity of skills. They are very keen and have changed, the Historic England have changed the way in which they're looking. They're not there purely for the keeping of buildings in aspect, but much more around their interaction with society, understanding the challenges, and our socio-demographics. Was quite a strong discussion which we had with them, and about the role in which tourism plays. We talked around the civic quarter, the levelling up funding, how that leads to an arts quarter, our links to the Arts Council, and how we can utilise the Arts Council working with Historic England. I think one of the things which they found particularly of interest in terms of some of the work is about the opportunity to create skills and engaging with schools and employment and opportunities, which was a really interesting discussion, both in the meeting and actually the way in which they came up afterwards to talk to us about the opportunities, about how they engage with schools in different parts of the country. And certainly we'll be following up with them about the different examples of good practice, which we heard from, such as in Knowsley and in Rotherham. I think that to also say that the opportunities which we saw around the Harwich was part of it. But we had a map, and I will send it out. In fact, I think what we'll probably do is do an all-member briefing. We'll actually run through. But we had a map of Tendring, and we had bubbles right the way around Tendring, which showed the diverse historic opportunities there are, from, as I say, Clacton, St Osyth, from Manningtree, from Harwich, and they went and saw the jail, right the way through to some of our more modern sites. And we also had some of our history around cultural history. So talking about kinder transport, talking about some of the diversity opportunities which we can demonstrate as part of our historic heritage, which we have in Tendring. So the outcome of it, I always call these things of throwing pebbles in ponds. You never know what the ripples got back. But the response we had from the Historic England Commissioners was excellent. Their interest in many of the projects which we are involved with was excellent. They were also extremely complimentary about the way in which we are dealing with some of the health and well-being issues. And we had quite a long discussion, interestingly, about suicide, and about how historic sites and how that can raise aspiration. Things like the Dig for Jaywick brings people out. Just the same as how we maximise our different historic sites to bring people out, get them engaged, whether it be volunteers, whether it be training, whether it be aspirational visits. But that engagement with the schools, which are important as that bedrock, and the way in which they do that. So I'm just very, very pleased that they spent some time. It is very, very unusual for the Historic England Commissioners to come as a whole body, and for them to have stayed the night in Harwich, but hear about the whole of Tendring, which was the focus of my presentation to them, was a tremendous opportunity, and I'm hoping that will give us a great return as a result of their visit.
Thank you, Mr. Davison, and it was an excellent opportunity. I do apologise, there was a local representative, Councillor Henderson. I think you wanted to say some things.
Thanks, Leader. Yeah, I'll just emphasise the comments that the Chief Exec's just made. It gave us an opportunity to actually build on what is already a really good relationship we have with Historic England, the heritage side, and those commissioners. And what I was surprised with is how many of those commissioners had a really wide outlook on all policy areas across the whole of the council, and what the council are responsible for, or what some of them which we're not responsible for. But education, they even talked about the environment and climate change and that side of things. So we had an opportunity to more or less promote what we're doing with Freeport East. And I mentioned about the £1 million that we're just giving out in grants to whether it be educational institutions or businesses for innovation and clean energy growth and innovation aspects which people are developing around, which a lot of those touch on Tendring District Council as well, and will bring benefits to the area. So they saw that. I think it gives a really good opportunity to showcase all the good things that are happening right across the district, and it actually is in line, and it gave us an opportunity to explain that what we want to look for the future is to actually sell the whole of the district as a visitor attraction and an experience, so we can invest, if you like, on some of those areas that we need to invest on to make them even better, to make it a better visitor feeling for the area. So it was a great opportunity. As Ian said, it touched on education, touched on climate change, touched on the deprivation areas. It gave us a really good chance to show not just, and that was the point I was making, and also the real benefit we have with working with the voluntary sector, because without the voluntary sector in a lot of these areas we work with, highlighting some of these visitor attractions and different things we do, the events we do, without their support and activity, we wouldn't be able to manage, and I think they really liked a lot of that stuff. And again, I think they see us as a council with the officers' support and the good work the officers do. They see us as a council which are moving forward, and if we're given something, if we're given a grant, or if we're given something, we make the most of it, and we bring those true benefits to the district.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Guglielmi.
Yeah, thank you. I just wondered if they visited the Martello Tower. That I think we had a £140,000 grant, and there were talk at the time to convert the top as a holiday let. And we have been very lucky to receive several levels. That was one of several that they granted us. And I just wondered if they visited the site, and also if you discussed the potential of setting up an historic trail that we often talked about, from especially around the coastline with the pillboxes and the various things that we have. And I think you're smiling. I think you're going to tell me that they did. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guglielmi. I'm going to hand you over to Mr. Davison. I think he'll answer it.
Councillor Guglielmi, can I ask, were you there? Because it's exactly that we did talk about. Yes, we did talk about the trail as one of those opportunities, for exactly that reason, about linking that up all the way around, and about the that was when we had the map up. The bubbles showed exactly how that came right the way around. They're very involved, of course, as Historic England in St Osyth Priory, and there's ongoing in terms of funding going on there, and obviously there's also a lot of engagement with us as the trust for the Priory. So that was a part of the conversation. The historic trail generally, though, around the coastal history was of interest. One of the attendees was a maritime, I'm going to say professor. I could have got his exact title wrong, because they had various, from lords to sirs to dames to professors, etc. So I may have get which one was, but one of them was a maritime expert and was very interested in some of the maritime history right the way around the coast. So that trail did get very much discussed. The Martello was on the pictures. The one which at the moment, of course, is the one of the big ticket items, and we've done the initial work on, of course, is the leading lights, and that's why they had actually gone to Harwich, because at the moment they've made some investment there. They can only go to one place, but we maximise the time by talking all the way around, and I think what we did was, unlike other places they went to, what we did was we focused on what our local socio-demographics were and what the role Historic England could play in those, rather than trying to sort of play a wider national story. So I think that was that historic trail and what the individual opportunities was very much one of the topics.
Thank you. I didn't mention the Priory because I thought that was a bit of a sensitive thing, but obviously discussed it. Thank you.
Councillor Henderson.
I'm going to just come back, because I didn't mention one of the important things which was stated to the commissioners was that sometimes we always talk about what offer it is for visitors, but it's actually we talk about also what our residents want. Sometimes we forget. It's not all about tourism. It is very important that our economic growth is the tourism side of it is about what our residents and the pride they have in our area, and some of these places and historic buildings and that. There's a real pride of our own people. I know for a fact that, like, if you talk about the leading lights, the amount of people who come to me on a regular basis saying we're really worried about them. We want them looked after. We want them restored, and we want them there for the future. So there is this, and we were able to emphasise that fact. And the maritime ones are really important, a good example of that, because if it hadn't been for some of the business visits we've been doing, and I think I went with Mike Carron, the officer, to the Naze Towers, and we did a big visit there and had a chat with them. And you see the links then, because when you look at lighthouses, and you see the important history behind the Naze Towers, and that goes right along the coastline where the Naze Towers is connected with Trinity House years ago, and then you've got those lighthouses in Harwich area which connects to that. So that's what I'm saying about the connections we can make all the way along the coast. And a good example is if you go back to the history, even with those leading lights and some of those lighthouses, and I was on the board of Harwich Haven Authority for a while, and they've got things like, and Trinity House have got things like light dues. And if you look back in the history, even those years ago, there was a charge for ships coming in through that river and through the channel there to actually make use of those navigational aids. They had to pay for that use, and that still goes on. So it's actually history coming to life and actually going forward for the future and still existing. So I think we've really got to make the most of that and join up a load of those things so we can make that as an educational and a visitor attraction in itself.
I've got you, Councillor Bray, but I'm going to go, Mr. Dames. I'm playing a bit of ping pong here. So.
Just well, actually, as Councillor Henderson's mentioned it, I will just touch on one of the topics we did make with the commissioners is the sheer cost of being a coastal district, and this is a really serious issue, and we will be taking this up during the course of the week at the Local Government Association conference. District councils with coastal challenges, you add nought to the bill, because as soon as you have the sea with it, it is significantly more expensive. You talked about the Naze Tower there, Councillor Henderson, and absolutely right. But look at just the extension to continue to protect that there is significantly expensive. Look at the Crag Walk when we did that in terms of that. Look at the North Point, which if we don't protect it, then the whole of the backwater around that one would be at risk. So, and the role which Historic England play in that coastal protection, which was a discussion which we had, was really important, because we may be protecting a tower by the cost of coastal protection. Therefore, Historic England have a role in that, and they recognise that. So that coastal protection, our role as a coastal protection district, is extremely expensive, far more expensive in terms of and it doesn't get reflected in the settlement, and therefore the issues which are challenges to us. So I think that's a really one. I also applaud, obviously, Councillor Henderson's memory of those charges coming in, and that he was there at the time.
Councillor Bray.
That was harsh but fair. I think Ian's just covered some of what I wanted to sort of mention, which was our position, as you say, on the coast and the extra costs that involves. Our particular district council in all coastal districts. But I wanted to go back on some of the things Councillor Henderson said. I mean, he's made some really good points there. It's important to local people. I spent quite a long time as a heritage champion on this council, so I bumped into quite a lot of the heritage people. What really surprised me was how many local people were really interested when they found out about new things that they didn't know about. And it's surprising how many assets we've got that even the people locally don't really know about, and they do need promoting. The idea of a trail also was something that was discussed a long time ago, and we sort of touched on it when we done the 150 trail, which happened during my year as chairman, but of course that just looks after Clacton principally. So it would be really good, as you say, to connect these things together, because there are connections, and it's quite clear when you sort of sit down and look at them, you can almost join the dots. So I think it's a brilliant thing to do. It's good for tourism, but actually it's good for local people too. I agree. Yeah.
If I may, you're absolutely right. One of the things we are doing it in so we've got some very good storyboards which are in individual places. But how do you link those up? So, you know, at the Naze, the storyboards there are very good. At the, you know, for the kinder transport at the top end are very good. But how do you link that up? How do you link up the kind of that coming all the way around, the kind of the Witchfinder General Trail, the way round, so somebody could follow that round. And I think so. There's a real opportunity there in terms of how we do link that up, which was exactly the conversation which we had with the commissioners about how we link it up rather than having individually good things in place.
That was a time when ships were made of wood and men were made of steel.
Right, so yeah, I mean, look, you just saw the passion in the room. So, and you know, we had these great people come down who are very influential, who are going to go and sit on boards and other places and bits and pieces, and they left with a really positive attitude towards tendering. Thanks to Ian, Ivan, and the team that hosted them. So, my thanks from as a leader of the council to that team. I think that's all mine. Is there anything else?
Chairman, did it say why councils were not allowed?
Only the local representative. So that was their choice. I wanted to go, but they said no. But they let Ian go, so I'm not quite sure whether they got a good deal there or not. Right, I'll move us on then. Matters referred to the cabinet. Oh, sorry, Mr. Davison.
I know it's not actually on as the agenda, but if I can just make one announcement as Chief Executive. Following the announcement of Anastasia Simpson's upcoming departure from the organisation at the end of the month, first of all, I want to thank her for her service to Tendring District Council. I think she's played a really important part around the partnerships, around the work which we've had in the improvement of our health index. I actually was able to say this at the board the other day with Anastasia there, which was very good. But I want to thank her very much indeed for her service to Tendring District Council, but also to the wider partnerships and the support for our health work. Rather than replace Anastasia, though, directly, I'm making permanent the temporary reallocation of services that have previously been reported, assigning them to other senior leaders. So if I can just read those out. As previously advised, Community Safety will now report to Damien Williams. Health and Partnerships will report to Lee Healy. And Careline will report to Gary Guyver, who will now become Director of Planning and Community. He was previously Director of Planning, so it's now Planning and Community. While the people function will be led by Katie Wilkins, and will report directly into myself as Head of Paid Service. To reflect the difference between those who sit on management team and those who do not, I'm changing some job titles also. And therefore, Richard Barrett and Lisa Hastings, who are existing members of management team, will now be called directors and not assistant directors. In addition, I'm also really pleased to announce that Lee Healy will take on the designation of Deputy Chief Executive, supporting myself and taking the lead in my absence. I'm delighted to have such an experienced and high qualified team of senior managers to support myself and the organisation. I think that our management team is one which has stepped up so many times to so many challenges, whether that be emergency planning, whether that be some huge projects, whether that be the delivery of complex changes throughout organisations, whether that be ensuring that this council is a council which is on a sound financial footing, whilst all the times delivering for a very complex set of circumstances for tendering, and set against the fact that we are effectively a peninsula, and as I said earlier, and a coastal authority. So I'm immensely proud of our management team, and I'm really pleased that we're doing the changes in order to reflect the designations, in order to reflect clearly for everyone, the management team members, but also the importance of the role they play, and just how supported our organisation is as a whole by a brilliant team. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Davison. Well, I'll also echo the great work that Anastasia did while she was here as a opposition to start with, and then further down the road as leader. She has been exceptional in a whole host of things, and Gina has had nothing but good words to say about her, and I can't say anything bad. It's one of those things where I'm really pleased that she's done, like Ian said, all these health index, the mental health hubs, the list is so long that you just can't say it all in one go. And also, Ian spoke to me about his potential book management list. Absolutely agree with him. Our officers are excellent. And it's so easy for me to say that because I go to all other councils as leader and as opposition, and there'll be other Essex councillors here who we've been to other places, and we stand head and shoulders. You know, we lead, and we're such a small authority, and that's only because of the excellent work of our officers. So the restructure today, I can wholeheartedly completely agree with. I think everybody has got exactly what they deserve, and yeah, I think I'll go to the floor for comments. Councillor Guglielmi.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I was very saddened to hear the news that Anastasia was going to leave the council. I worked very closely with Anastasia during our time in office, and the two legacy that she leaves will be the very testing time of career track during the Ofsted review, which we came out with all guns blazing and much better service as a result of that. But a main achievement is got to be the mental health hubs, which at the penultimate meeting of the Essex Health and Wellbeing Board, we had the head teacher who was the very first hub that was set up in Tendring Great Bentley, who actually received a round of applause for what had been set up there. There was an evaluation there from Essex University, which was absolutely mind-blowing, really, to what the result that mental health hub has achieved, and now rolled out to 30 different schools. And of course, very fittingly, we got today on the agenda how to deal with the money that comes in, which was always a problem that really she caused the council. You know, she pulled all this money in. And I remember discussing it with Lisa, Ms. Hastings, on how to structure this money that comes in. So very well having money come in, but how do you manage it? And there was always a concern, really, you know. You'd have thought that would be quite worrying to worry about you got too much money. But yeah, there was a worry. And I'm glad to see that you're proposing to put some framework around it. But again, I agree with Ian. You know, the structure that is in place now is flexible, and it's populated by very able people, and it can only prosper going forward. So thank you very much. But I felt I had to say a few words because I've been working so closely with her. Thank you.
And good words they were. Councillor Bray, did you want to speak? In that case, Councillor Henderson.
I just wanted to say on the back of that, and also the recognition that I've seen from Anastasia's work involved in the family solutions. She has certainly laid the foundations. I know, particularly if I can say that, in my own area where we've got a fantastic lounge centre, which was the old Esplanade Hall, with all the facilities and all the agencies in there, and she worked closely with Essex County Council to bring that the funding in to actually make sure that it existed. And the support the families are getting through that now, and also the organisations and voluntary sectors around dealing with families vulnerable families and the need and support they require on a regular basis. I've always gone, as soon as I've had a problem, I've gone to Anastasia, whether it be from an organisation or a particular family or whatever, and Anastasia's put us in the right direction. So, yeah, I can only say what an asset she's been to some of those areas that I always have a lot of concern with now for the families.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Bray.
Thanks, Odia. Yeah, I didn't really work with Anastasia all that much. I tended to be on a different sort of area of the council, but when I did, I always found Anastasia to be absolutely excellent and a really, really good officer to work with, very diligent and very efficient. But I didn't work with her as often as Councillor Henderson and Councillor Guglielmi, so I saw less of her, but I know she was very good at what she done. And I sort of like to add to that also congratulations to the officers who sort of changed their names and positions a little bit, and I'm sure they'll all appreciate the extra workload. Thanks, Leader.
I think you kind of beat me to that one, so I was just going to sum up with that. And I was like, you know, that new planning and community will be, you know, it's such a big word, isn't it? You know, how much is it going to bring in? And, you know, well done to Lee. He's now our new Deputy CEO. And how much work are you going to have to do? Those random phone calls at the middle of the night when Ian's gallivanting away on holiday, like he. So, congratulations to you all. So, right, I think that's all. That's number 4 done. Yeah, that just took us half an hour. Okay, announcements by cabinet members. Councillor Barry.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Can I just highlight and commend the actions of a local councillor, Councillor Sarah Newton, her partner Dale Ward, and their brilliant team of volunteers in establishing the inaugural 10-kilometre run along Clacton Seafront, which took place yesterday. This initiative resonates very much with our recently adopted sport and activity strategy, and it is a great example of community spirit and teamwork in action. I did was there present at the start. It was a very windy and challenging day to run along the seafront, but there were over 420 runners on the day, which was a fantastic effort, given that we were in discussions early on and the anticipated numbers were around about the 100 mark. So it just shows what a tremendous effort this team has put in to get those many people out active on a Sunday morning. So I'd just like that noted and commend them. Thank you.
Yes, I'll say a little bit on that as well, because I was there with you, and yes, somebody did the 10K run in 38 minutes, and I'd still be at the other end, so wondering when do I turn round. And the wind and the rain was horrendous, and we were just handing out the badges, so and the medals. It was a great event, so I think well done to Councillor Newton and all her volunteers for putting on the very first thing. I'll go to Councillor Baker first.
Thank you, Chairman. I actually went out to watch yesterday. Running, I did that a long time ago, and I'm not going to do it again. I was actually in the wrong place. Then I decided to stand where they were running and not on the lower prom. But I think it's very commendable of the people that turned up as well, not necessarily as well as the organisers, because the Great South Run was cancelled because of the weather. We're a lot hardier here, so it doesn't matter what the weather is, we'll just go out for a run. And I think they should all be commended. Everyone finished, as far as I'm aware. I was at the end for a little while, and I was absolutely freezing, and there were people there just wearing shorts, a t-shirt, and they should be commended. Well done, everybody. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Bray.
Thanks, Leader. Yeah, well, congratulations to all involved in that. Excellent. As you know, I've done the Santa Run a couple of years ago, and it was a similar theme, although a good deal shorter than 10K, which is just as well, if you're me. But no, anything like that sort of builds local spirit. It's got to be a good thing. Raise a little bit of money and all of that. Next time, however, can I suggest you try doing it in red suits? It's much more fun. Thank you very much, Councillor Barry. Anybody else? Okay, that's number 5 done. Number 6, matters referred to the Cabinet by the Council. There are none. And number 7, matters referred to the Cabinet by a committee. There are also none. Which takes us on to number 8, which is the 24-25 Highlight Priority Half-Yearly Update. And this one's mine, so I'll start with it. Hopefully you've all read the report. It's quite a lengthy and in-depth report about where we are with our priorities for 24-25. It's been a busy year. I think there's no way of saying it. We've had 2 elections, the PFCC, and then we had the election in July where we got our new MPs. On top of that, we've had works around our waste contract, which has been all-consuming, the Levelling Up Fund, the Levelling Up Partnership, the Town Board, and then all the business as usual, along with sport strategies, and there's so many other things. So I'm really, really impressed with all of the council and their teams that have come together to deliver this report today and to show exactly what can be done. I think there's so many greens on there that is good. We're all ahead of target, and the yellow ones are predominantly, as I spoke about earlier, that government intervention where we've had a new Labour government come in, and while they're settling in and finding their feet, it's put our plans on hold or paused it. So those yellows are just generally around timing rather than slippage. So I wasn't going to say too much on it.
I know Councillor Henderson wanted to say some stuff on it.
I'll second it, but I'm
okay.
happy to wait and say a few bits later
Yep,
after everyone
no
else.
problems. And does anybody else want to speak on it? Councillor Baker.
Chairman, it'd be remiss of me not to. I like to see green, and as you said, there are a couple of ambers, one of which comes under one of my portfolios, which is obviously planning. Obviously, due to the general election and the announcements made by the Deputy Prime Minister about the National Planning Policy Framework being reviewed again, obviously the times for local plan have been put back. Unfortunate, but these things happen. So, like I say, it'd be remiss of me not to. Obviously, one of our main priorities is pride in our area and services to residents, and obviously that's supporting decent housing for our residents. And as you can see on page, I think 36, one of those was improving our housing stock, and you'll see there the stock condition survey of the first 300, although it was actually 290, was done. And they highlighted a very small number of repairs which were done very, very quickly, and they were very minor. I know that was for quarter one. Quarter two will be in the future, but we're now up to, as of 19th of September, 680 of our properties have been surveyed, and again, a very small number have been found not to reach decent home standard, which again have been dealt with very quickly. And on, if I can just find the page, Chairman, if you just bear with me. And it'll be, I should also say about the Tendring Colchester Borders Garden Community, which we really need to rename soon because it's getting a huge mouthful to pronounce. The development planning document went out to the modifications on that document went out to consultation just recently and still out. And we're hopeful that once that's all done, that will be coming back. The planning inspector will issue his decision that the document is sound, and that will then come to this council for adoption, and then we can move on. And hopefully I'll be able to report back later, either this year or early next year, as to where we are with that. Thank you, Leader.
Sorry. Okay. So Part B and C is a Section 5 that's been issued by the Monitor Officer. And to be honest, I think I'm just going to hand it straight over to the Monitor Officer. If you don't mind, Lisa, explaining it for us. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Just to explain that the requirement on this occasion for me to report something under Section 5 of the Local Government and Housing Act is in relation to the fact that it's become apparent that Tendring District Council has not adopted a crime and disorder reduction strategy as it is statutory required to do so. At this stage I'm just reporting that to you, which I'm under a statutory duty to do so, and then it is for Cabinet to receive that formally, which is why there is the recommendation, and there's some proposed solution, which is to bring an update to the next meeting of Cabinet.
Okay, thank you for that. So that covers Part B, and I've already sat down with the portfolio holder for partnerships, Councillor Placey, and we've had a conversation, and yes, that will be coming to the next meeting of Cabinet with the timescales, and so we'll all understand exactly where we are at that point. So, any comments on anything before I've got a seconder from Councillor Henderson. Are we all agreed? Agreed. Okay. Agenda item number 9. So this is me again. This is the report of the Corporate Finance and Governance Portfolio. It's a financial performance report 2024 to 25. General update as to the end of July 24. And to capture it all, sorry, yes, before I start, Councillor Barry.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Can I just confirm and redeclare a declarable pecuniary interest in this item in respect of my position as a trustee of Brighton Sea Lido, which is mentioned in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. Okay, captured this in a couple of pages, so I'll go through this and I'll take some questions afterwards. So, following on from the outturn report that Cabinet considered in July, the report we have in front of us today is the first financial performance report for 24-25. The report takes a look at the in-year position for 24-25, along with looking ahead to 25-26 and beyond by way of an updated forecast. In terms of the 24-25 in-year position, we took the opportunity during the budget setting process and earlier financial reports, such as the outturn report presented to Cabinet in July, to make a number of necessary budget adjustments. These budget adjustments reflected a range of issues, which has enabled us to maintain the most accurate budget position as possible, which in turn helps our financial stability along with supporting timely financial interventions as necessary. As highlighted in the report, this approach has reduced potential surprises as the issues that have emerged to date reflect matters already known to us rather than anything new. Appendix 1.8 sets out a number of further proposed adjustments to support the ongoing approach. We still have a number of challenges, the most significant of which is homelessness. This remains a significant cost to the Council, and further updates will be provided as part of the Q2 report later in the year. Although it is relatively early in the financial year, following discussions with officers, I can be as confident as I can be that we can manage any adverse issues within the Council's overall existing budget, rather than relying on drawing down money from the reserves. For example, increased income from our Treasury investment provides a robust starting point. Having said that, we must not be complacent, and I will provide further updates over the coming weeks. Although we have a number of budget adjustments in 24-25, the next challenge is to understand the potential impact in 25-26 and beyond. Such matters certainly remain under review as we continue to develop the forecast and budget for 25-26. In terms of the forecast, this has been extended out to 2033-34. As we've discussed before, a long-term approach supports the Council's ability to manage its budget sensibly and sustainably. Along with the forecast risk fund, we effectively buy ourselves time that in turn helps our financial decision making. However, the long-term plan highlights that the ongoing problem of our annual expenditure exceeding our annual income, a scenario that is clearly not sustainable. Having said that, we have set out our first iteration of saving plans, which will get us close to the original 2.5 million target for 25-26 and 26-27. We must keep this momentum up and explore further saving opportunities going forward to enable us to manage our budget sustainably in the years to come. Although we await potential news as part of the government's budgets next week, our current forecast is based on taking a relatively optimistic, or should I say less pessimistic view of the support that we will provide to local councils. They will provide to local councils. I will provide further updates over the coming weeks as this will have a significant impact on the Council's financial position over the forecast period, which could result in additional savings being required or conversely, a reduction in savings. Whatever the outcome, and to manage expectations, the need to make savings is not going away, and it is more about the scale and speed that we have to secure them. A question we cannot necessarily answer at the present time when looking beyond 26-27. As always, I welcome the views and inputs from the Resource and Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Okay, I'm going to get a second first, and then could I get a seconder?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I'm happy to second that.
Okay, Mr. Davidson.
Thank you very much indeed, Leader. I just want to just sort of really mention and just extend on what you were saying. It is really important what the government settlement is in terms of both where is our revenue support grant position, and also whether we get a multi-year settlement, both of which actually secure what we can do. We need to know. That's the key issue. We need to know. Now, this is a message which is coming from the District Councils Network, from the LGA, and I think that at every opportunity as a public we can make that point. And it has been fed back to government as well in the consultations. But this is really important that we do need to know, because it is how we plan. We have a 10-year forecast, which is part. We are 60-70% knowing what's going to happen, but because we don't know what the settlement is, it makes it that much more difficult to make the 10-year forecast accurate. So therefore, that's really important. As a result of the work which we're doing throughout the budget, it will then help us assist us to recast the 25-26 budget in order that we can set the 25-26 budget on the basis with your savings plan, which, as you rightly say, the opportunity then to have that discussion at scrutiny, which will be about the forecast for 25-26, the in-year position as you see it here, and also what the settlement is. And those three things coming together may make some significant changes, they may make some limited changes. We don't know yet, but I just needed to really reiterate in public the requirement, the need for us to have multi-year settlements, and also to have some surety around the revenue support grant.
Thank you, Mr. Davison. Councillor Guglielmi.
Chairman, yes, thank you. Just like to, tongue-in-cheek, really welcome the fact that you've now embraced the long-term strategy that we put in place, and it's great. It's really there's some authorities out there that would give both their arms to be in the situation that this council found itself in, and the 6.41 estimated forecast risk fund that gives a very good cushion to what it is. But I will just mention, though, you know, I've got no specific question because it's a very sound position to be in, and it's a very good work being done. The two reserves, the NMDR and the benefits reserves, do you plan to do anything with that in there? They've been there for about 10 years now, I think. Thank you.
Oh, the irony. As portfolio, as scrutiny chairman, I always ask the same question. Some of those things have got to be there legally. So I think we'll wait until see. I've got another report coming in a month, and we'll see where the government lands. You know, with its, I think it's Wednesday, isn't it? The budget, and then we can start seeing whether things can be moved around. But some of those things have to be legally there for it to, as a cushion for things going wrong on those sort of sides of things. So, but we have looked at it already once or twice. So, but it's just a reserve. It's not a budget setting. So, we're just moving money from one place to another. You know, once it's gone, it's gone. You know what it's like. You used to be the portfolio holder for finance yourself. So, yeah, I'll have a look at it for you, Carlo.
For my come back, Chairman, I got a very good project in my area that would could bring a very good return if you invested properly. But we can have a conversation afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody? Councillor Bray.
Thanks, Leader. Just very quickly, picking up on the comments made by the Chief Executive, I've sort of worked in the financial services area, and certainty is pretty much impossible. But I absolutely agree. I note that you commented in your comments, Leader, that you were taking a less pessimistic view. I'm natural-born cynic, I'm afraid, so I'm quite cynical, so I tend to be a tad pessimistic. I think the idea of being cautious, at least for the time being, until we have some kind of certainty, is exactly the right approach at the moment. We really don't know. We have a new government, and they will be different to the previous government, and it's difficult to know exactly what direction they'll go in. So I think caution is exactly the right way to go, at least for the time being. So thanks, Chair.
Couldn't agree with you more, which is why I say less pessimistic. Still implies pessimistic. So, okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay, I've moved it. It's been seconded. Are we all agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 10. And this is a report of the Housing Planning Portfolio Holder. So this will be Councillor Baker. And it's tendering District Council's interim policy on biodiversity net gain. And I believe we're over to you, Councillor Baker.
Thank you very much, Leader. Oh, it's all gone wrong. No. So, this report, I seek Cabinet's agreement to adopt a policy statement on biodiversity net gain, BNG, which will be an interim position on the subject prior to detailed consideration during the ongoing local plan review. Having such an interim policy will enable this council to respond both positively and constructively in consideration of BNG as part of the planning process and in the consideration of proposals for the setting up of habitat banks by landowners within tendering, as well as potentially this council. Biodiversity net gain is a legal requirement of the planning system, which has applied to most major development proposals since April 2024, and this requirement means that developers have to deliver a minimum of 10% increase in biodiversity, i.e. wildlife, over what was present on the relevant site prior to development. And this increase is set out using a complex biodiversity metric, which is set out in national guidance. And to achieve this 10%, developments are required to provide as much of this on site as is possible. However, can they not do that? They can create the necessary habitat either on other land they control, which is tied by a legal agreement, or by purchasing biodiversity units from a habitat bank, which would be a wildlife habitat created and maintained by a third-party landowner, in other words, a farmer or other landowner, for the purposes of biodiversity net gain, where units could be sold on the open market. It sounds complex, but I don't think it is in practice. Well, we'll wait and see. Anyway, there's various things that to set up a habitat bank and lawfully enter the market that a landowner would have to do. I won't go into too much of this because it's all set out in the report. There are a number of landowners in tendering have expressed a very keen interest in setting up habitat banks, and they've carried out much of the preparatory work. They've been in discussion with our officers, required for entering into a legal agreement with the council, registering with Natural England and entering into the market. However, like many other local authorities, this council has not been able or been in a position to progress those discussions about entering into all the necessary legal agreements because they've needed time to research, consider and fully understand both the council's legal duties and the implications for resources, particularly in relation to the council's responsibilities around monitoring this progress. But now there's better understanding. This policy or interim policy has come forward. I won't go through what it all covers because that's all set out in the actual policy. But there's a number of things in there. One thing I will point out is that obviously Tendring District Council owns land. That land is being looked at by partners to see if any of it is suitable for us to have habitat banks that we can then enter in agreements with landowners, but that will be in the future. So the intention that the proposed policy is agreed by us today for referral to the Planning Policy and Local Plan Committee for its full consideration for inclusion in the local plan through the forthcoming review process. But in the interim that we adopt as the council's corporate position on biodiversity net gain, and it will enable officers to progress discussions with everybody. It is also recommended that the Planning Committee be invited to give consideration as to how it exercises its decision-making powers in respect of the relevant legal agreements, those powers which are to be delegated, if at all, to officers, and whether any public consultation arrangements should be put in place for the consideration of proposals for habitat banks that come forward. Chairman, the recommendations on page 111 of the agenda, I don't intend to read them out, and I commend them to Cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Have you got a seconder? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Leader. I second the endorsement of this policy. It will allow this council to work positively with our landowners and farmers to put measures in place to make biodiversity net gain and nature happen. Tendring has huge potential to see significant gain in biodiversity, and there are opportunities to support the rural economy. It is only right that this policy goes to the Planning Policy and Local Plan Committee for its consideration as part of the local plan review. But in the interim, it gives us a positive starting point dealing with biodiversity net gain. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Has anybody got any contributions? Councillor Guglielmi.
Chairman, thank you, and fully welcome this. As Councillor Baker has mentioned, I too have had a great number of people contacted me about offering their fields, which they could see as a very good opportunity, rightly so. And I've got to praise Gary in the way that he dealt with the onslaught of contacts that we both experienced and the interim solution they provided. And it's right and proper that the local plan and the planning committee take a look at this and set it up. And in Tendring, we have not got a major problem like many other districts have because of the abundance of land that we have. And it's, again, it'll be very good to identify some offsetting sites because that is something that we should fully embrace. And and look to go above the 10% box standards. Again, that it's your mandatory thing to achieve, and there's no reason why we should exceed that with going forward. But fully welcome this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guglielmi. Councillor Bray?
Thanks, Leader. Not too many comments at this point, but I've read policy. It looks good as an interim policy. The devil obviously will be in the detail later on, and obviously it may or may not be affected by the local plan review and so on and so on. So I look forward to seeing it coming into the local plan committee, which I sit on, so I'll have much more to say there, I suspect. Thanks, Leader.
Yes, planning's an ever-moving beast, and we're lucky to have, I think when you said Gary, you were talking to our director, Gary Guyver, not our portfolio holder for arts and culture, Gary Scott. But yes, I mean, we've got an excellent director that's helping us with us. We've also got yourself, Carlo, as the chairman of the local plan policy committee. We've got a great portfolio holder, so we've got an excellent team, you know, and Gary and his officers are brilliant. So very, very confident to support this and move it forward. I'm going to take it to the vote. It's been moved and seconded. Everybody happy with it? Thank you very much. Okay, the next one is also Councillor Baker's report, the housing portfolio holder, making adoption of the Ardley Neighbourhood Plan.
Yep, me again. Thank you, Chairman. I'm asking Cabinet to adopt the Ardley Neighbourhood Plan as part of this Council statutory development plan, making it a material consideration in planning decisions alongside our current local plan. This follows a local referendum in which a clear majority of residents were in favour of the plan being made. Ardley Parish Council prepared this plan, which has gone through all the stages set out in the relevant legislation, including both informal and formal consultation, independent examination, where a number of suggestions were modifications were suggested and are subsequently agreed by both this council and the parish council, which allowed it to go to referendum. And as I mentioned at full council last month now, on Thursday the 12th of September, the referendum was held and 86.5% of the residents who voted in favour. It'd be remiss of me not to mention, Leader, that a lot of very hard work has been undertaken. It is by no means an easy task by both the parish council, their supporters, and supported by our excellent planning officers to get to this stage, and they are to be highly commended for doing so. The recommendation is on page 132 of the agenda, and I move it as written.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. And do you have a seconder? Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I gladly second this proposal for Ardley Neighbourhood Plan. It gives residents and parish councillors a bit more say in their community, so I fully support this. Thank you.
I'm going to go with Councillor Bray first.
I go first this time. Doesn't happen often. First of all, I'd just like to congratulate Ardley for getting their neighbourhood plan through. I think it's excellent. I wish more parish councils would do it. I've advocated it everywhere I go. The more input you can get from local residents, parish councils at the ground level, the better response, the better you understand what it is that people want. I think that's exactly the way to go. So my absolute congratulations. The only disappointing thing, if there is anything, is the low turnout for the referendum, but we live in a world where low turnouts seem normal. So, but of those who did turn out, it was quite clear the support was massive. So full congratulations to everybody involved. Heck of a lot of hard work, as Councillor Baker said. So well done, everybody. Thank you.
I sometimes think that the no turnout means I'm okay with it. So, Councillor Guglielmi.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Picking up from what Councillor Bray said, hope that more councils would do this. The reason that they haven't is because it's a massive amount of work, pure and simple. You know, I represent a council which is one of the largest ones, and once we realised how much work was involved, we decided not to. And anyway, we've taken the brunt of all the development that we had to have, and so we decided not to. But it is really quite good to understand that it's not a parish council that leads this. You know, in fact, the very first briefing I went to in 2010-11, when the NPPF wasn't even a thing in those days, neighbourhood plan was one of the first things that was talked about. and it was a very heavy emphasis on the fact that there should not be council-led. In fact, there should be community-led. And there's been a huge amount of people in that community which have put in hours and hours and hours of work into getting the thing done. It's quite cumbersome for the council as well, because the district council has to provide support to those people, those communities group that wish to pursue this. So let's not forget the work that the district council has put in, the resources that have been taken away from elsewhere to dedicate to the creation of neighbourhood plans. And I say this with tongue in cheek. Luckily, there's not been that many of them come forward, but you know, it is a major resource ask from our team here. But having said all that, I think Ardley have come up with something absolutely spectacular that's really recognised what's happened in their area and how to plan sensibly for any future developments within the area in accordance with our local plan. Because that's the other thing, a neighbourhood plan must not be in go against the policies of the overarching local plan, which we now have in place and things. And there was a huge amount of work being done, and all pushback on some of the stuff they wanted to achieve that could not be achieved. And so therefore, it's let's recognise the amount of work that both sides have had to put in. But I really wanted to highlight the fact that it is not the parish council led. There was representation from the parish council, but it was a lot of community individual representatives that have put their time into it. So well done to all those involved. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. This and the next one are actually quite important, I think, for a different reason as well. At the moment, we're awaiting what the government announcements are about housing numbers, about what's going to happen next, and actually this helps to give a framework for those areas. But we know that the numbers which are, and will be new targets for district councils to be setting, we know that this will be increasing our targets around quite significantly around the housing numbers, and we will need to be looking at those, but this will help at least giving some guidance for those areas which have neighbourhood plans in that areas. It doesn't mean to say, as we know, that a neighbourhood plan cannot say no development here, thank you very much indeed, one liner. It's about working with what is the preferred option, and so they are important documents, and they may well become even more important documents. And picking up your point, Councillor Bray, about more areas getting them, I think that would be helpful, and this should be an encouragement, because the government changes are going to be significant numbers for us and for every authority.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. And as both of you said, in fact everybody said, it's a significant achievement, but I think when you said we're lucky we haven't had it, I think what we've proved is it can be done. Yeah, there's proof that they are now. So, and two of them. So, I wouldn't say that we're not going to see any more. Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Baker, seconded by Councillor Scott. Are we all in agreement? Okay, moving on to, but no less, the making of the Elmsted neighbourhood plan. And this one again is Councillor Baker.
Chairman, I was going to read out exactly what I just said, but just change the name. So basically, the report is asking Cabinet to make and adopt the Elmsted neighbourhood plan as which will become part of this council's statutory development plan, making it a material consideration alongside the current local plan. I didn't mention in full, and I should have done. Councillor Guglielmi mentioned it. There's a lot of work gone into these, and it is resident-led with the support of the parish council and our district council, our wonderful planning officers, and there is so much work that goes into it. I know the council that Councillor Guglielmi is referring to when they decided not to because it was, oh no. So again, a high turnout, a high percentage, of residents voted, 96.2 voted in favour. So the recommendation is on page 246, and I move it as written. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scott.
Yeah, exactly the same as the previous comments I made in the Ardley one. I have to say, neighbourhood plans are becoming popular. The first one in our district was in Alresford, and that took about 4 years to get to that stage. And the Ardley and Elmsted ones have been quicker due to the fact of all the support from the TDC planning department. So it's a lot of work's gone in, and Councillor Guilherme is right. It's the district council's planning department should be thanked, and they definitely are doing wonderful work for communities to pass the barriers and navigate round planning in terms of neighbourhood plans. Thank you.
Who went first last time? I'm going to go with Carlo this time. Sorry, Councillor Guilherme.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The common denominator between Ardley and Elmsted is that they are in my Essex County Council division, and they are the two villages who are going to be impacted by the Tendring-Colchester border, which was a major reason for both conurbation there to invest the time that they have into embark and set something up that laid out the perimeter and you know, and any future development to be had in the villages has their wish to see, you know. And I think Mr. Davison was absolutely right. There was a great number of people which thought the neighbourhood plan would stop development. It doesn't, you know. It adds to development. That's what we planned for that, you know. But it's quite interesting that the amount they decided to put the time because of the garden community that was, you know, always going to happen, and it's now progressing, as we heard in your priorities item earlier on. So it does give them some kind of reassurances, and it will be very, very interesting to see how the neighbourhood plans will be affected by the changes. There wasn't in the letter that the Deputy Prime Minister sent out, there wasn't any mention specific of neighbourhood plan, but there was quite a lot of talk about communities and affordable housing and things, but the neighbourhood plan had not been discussed. I'm hoping that there will be an area that, because of the amount of effort that's gone into creating those, they will be left and they will be kind of be part of the development plan when considering application and development and where it goes. So again, you know, all congratulations to Elmsted for having done what Ardley and Alresford has done. The only 3 villages that we have in Tendring. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlo. Councillor Bray.
Thanks, Leader. I could just say I'll refer the Cabinet to comments I made some moments ago, but I won't do that. I think a couple of points were raised. That the point Councillor Scott made, that the second one seemed to be a lot quicker than the first one, is perhaps simply down to the fact that once you've done one, the second one's easier, and therefore the third one should be easier still. But again, absolute congratulations, huge amount of work, so well done to everybody involved. But also the fact that now there are 2 through, perhaps that will encourage others forward, and I appreciate there is a cost implication, but I hope that we wouldn't stop something like this happening because of cost. We're here to look after people after all said and done. So again, full congratulations, really great job. Let's hope there's more coming. Thanks.
A little bit cheeky, I would say, as a finance portfolio holder, we haven't used cost as a reason to stop it yet. So, right. It's been moved by Councillor Baker, seconded by Councillor Scott. Are we all in agreement? Thank you very much. Item number 13 is the management team items. There are none. Okay, date of the next scheduled meeting is Friday the 15th of November, nearly the end of the year. And I'll hereby close the meeting. Thank you very much.